Intertextual Cardboard Experience.
This is VOD, Ghost of Podcast, past, present, future, and everywhere in between. In the matter of seconds, and then further explained in a couple minutes, you're finding out that you are subjected to the ramblings of just one person, Ryan. It's quite terrifying, and believe me, going into this little in-between episode, I was so excited to mess around with some thoughts on my own, but those thoughts grew and became so unruly. I typed about 3,000 words, and a lot of those words were just outlines for the things that I discussed, between a couple things that I stumbled over and had to re-say, bathroom break, couple chunks of a couple minutes of just sitting there looking at myself and saying, have you gone crazy? My first recording was over an hour and 45 minutes. It was a struggle. It was weird. It wasn't what I wanted. And when I looked into the Zoom camera at myself when everything was said and done, I saw a person that was so defeated. There was a ton of prep into trying to make my Only Me interview slash ramblings a fun opportunity to help create some bearing for you, the listeners, to perhaps understand me more. The cohesion was terrible, and frankly, everything sucked. What you're about to listen to was still kind of tough to do. Straightly soliloquizing into a camera and looking at a confused version of yourself all the while gets tougher as time goes on. I was disappointed because a lot of episode specific feedback was a part of the first take that ultimately got cut between version 1 and 2. There were many good thoughts and gratitudes expressed in those words, but the way that I kind of try to branch and connect those parts to the future parts just made it really tough to make it all make a lot of sense. But I'm hoping to be able to send out the chunks of that audio to the previous guest, because one of the purposes of this is to express that gratitude. And obviously, without diving into the particular episodes, there's a lot more general thank you being shared here to everyone who has listened to the show, and obviously everybody that has been on the show and talked with me. All that said, the podcast lives, so thank you for checking it out. Hello, and welcome to Intertextual Cardboard Experience. If you couldn't tell from that little prologue, it's just me today. And before you flee, delete, cry, whatever, I implore that you stick with me. Despite not having an awesome guest here to carry the episode, I think you're in for a unique opportunity today. There will be words, news, buried teasers, a giveaway, and more. Between the school trimester ending, coaching, holidays, and a slew of other things converging, I definitely fell behind with communication, planning, and all of that. From a scheduling standpoint, though, I feel as if this could be a really neat thing. Instead of having to wait a full 2 weeks before the next quote-unquote real episode, you'll be able to return to your regularly scheduled program, and a special one at that, 1 week from today. I was contemplating making this one a non-episode, but with everything that has gone into it and was deleted and is now going into it with some major revisions, it's going to be a full-fledged numbered episode. This also sets up the next guest to be episode 10, which will be a mini landmark and a holiday gift-ish to myself and hopefully you too. Then there won't be an episode releasing on Christmas Day for those who celebrate that or have any family-related functions, so I feel that works out. Despite not being the initial intent, I'm happy, especially happy now, excited, and have a whole bunch of positivity for what you're about to listen to. Much of the podcast, with the episodes that have happened already, don't explicitly talk about some of my preferences or behind the scenes stuff. I've done a little bit of that in, intro, prologue things with the chapter introduction and things like that. some of my preferences are inherently baked into the show, based on, who I'm talking to. There are people that I've engaged with through their games, designs, critical media about games, and the subsequent discussion has covered, some of my thoughts and opinions on things as well. But all that said, with it just being me, hopefully you can learn a little bit about me in not too long of a period in time, and I hope that is enlightening as well. Pod stats and thoughts. Podcast stats, or PODSTATS, as you just heard, is maybe not what you think. Little quick thing for you. So I have my most frequently used phrases in ooh, very cool, ooh, very neat, I like that a lot, or I like that, insert comma, I like that a lot. Just reflecting on that, right away, whenever there is an interview, I'll listen to it just about right away. So maybe I'll go for like a run and throw it on and listen to it. But I just want to hear where like the conversation breaks are, and the way that things should be organized from like a structural show note break standpoint, which I'll talk about in a second. So having it like happen immediately after really just like allows me to do some of that like pre-production work. And some people hate listening to themselves. I get that. Used to be there. But after years of necessary public speaking, just growing up, and everything that's involved with that, I've shed quite a bit of pride and ego. In all things, I want to do my absolute best. And being able to laugh or even appreciate my idiosyncrasies has become a part of that. And it's super sincere. In the face of all of these unique and insightful guests, what they say is quite cool, neat, and like-worthy. Chapters / sound effects. A big thanks to Alan for the idea on breaking the episodes up a little. People definitely listen to their podcasts in different ways, so this could be a potential, disruption if you just listen to the conversation straight. But the audio of the conversation isn't changed at all with these mini breaks. So it's still just that normal, authentic conversation, and also has the potential of a nice reference point just in case you want to find a discussion topic a little easier by having things chunked off in 15, 20, up to 30, or as low as like 5 or 8 minutes. I do hope that the navigation of finding parts, if that is something that you have done after listening to one time, is easier for you. Additionally, I really like the fact that it allows me to add a little flair and specificity for the particular guests. Everything that I'm trying to do is linked to that specificity. Running around on a windy day to catch a disc golf putt that I just made, audio recording my dental hygiene, and the other things that I've done and thought about have been entertaining to me too. Logo. All right, for my logo, I love this. One of my friends made it for me because they have a ton of graphic design skill and I do not. Maybe eventually I'll share the inspirational prototype that I had for them to work with. It's laughably bad. Kind of the intent. I wasn't going to spend a ton of time trying to polish a piece that was going to get binned, but they took the idea, ran with it, and made this phenomenal logo that I can't get over. There are some layers with the name and the logo that I like a lot too. I'm probably never going to call this production ICE. Well, that obviously is the name. that it could be if you're going to turn it into an acronym. And then there's this idea of like the water melting off with all the different representations of the different mediums, and that's that whole blending is what I like want to do as much as possible. So I think that logo is perfect. I couldn't be happier with the channel's logo, and I'm very appreciative for having awesome friends. Intro sound effects. My audio editing skills are not much better than my graphic design skills, and I'm not 100% sure if what I'm even was trying to do here comes across. It's meant to be a cacophony of dice clattering, pages turning, cards shuffling, and then spliced and put together in a way that hopefully sounds like a film reel. Perhaps having to spell it out is too much. Overall, I like it. I'm open to feedback. One of the things that this episode is going to wrap up with is feedback related. So I would love to hear some thoughts on this and anything in general. Outro. Super serviceable to start. I think it's said what it needed to say, but much like some of the framing of the podcast in the page's description, the project is growing up. We are still in its early stages, and I'm still excited to see where this goes. I'm also excited where it has gone. So switching some of the wording and all that for both the podcast description and outro will be implemented for episode 10. New to me 2023. All right, with some specific thoughts about the podcast completed, we are now on to the new to me 2023 section. One of the parts from the huge part that got cut out was going through all of these awesome text recommendations from all of the guests that I've had, and they weren't even necessarily recommendations. It was just the text that I asked them to share and talk about as something that had been stuck on their mind. And additionally, in that section, I did discuss other games, books, shows, movies, musicians that were brought up throughout the course of the episodes, and how diligent or thorough I was in making sure that I checked them out. And honestly, I did like an okay job. Any book that was mentioned in any of the episodes, whether that was something that the guests had read or listened to, like via audiobook, was not something that I personally have read or listened to. So that gets me to books. Bro, do you even read? I am self-admittedly one of the slowest readers you can find, and I have quite this odd process where I'll be reading like a handful of things. For the most part, if I'm reading a whole bunch of things, I can pick up a book after quite the period of time, and back read a couple pages, catch up, and be fine and ready to go. Sometimes that doesn't work. For example, when I've tried to work through Gravity's Rainbow, and then I open it up after, this could even be like a couple months, not like a half year plus, which is what I sometimes do. I have to start over. So I've restarted that several times, and that's one of my 2024 resolutions. I omitted the word resolutions from the list of things that this was going to include, but I really, really, really want to actually finally read that. But a resolution before that is finishing up everything that is on my currently being read list, and trying to like just stick through one and go with that. All right, so that's my reading habits. That's the long of it. The short of it is that I haven't actually completed much this year. So I think that my favorite new to me book then would have to be the combination of Dune and Dune Messiah. So this was board game inspired too. I had played Dune Imperium, liked it quite a bit, wanted to watch the movies, but then decided that I would rather read some of the novels before having the images from the film adaptation kind of be like ingrained and burned on my brain, so messing up my reading a little bit. I'm uncertain how much further I want to go with the series. One was dense, and I know that the next few get to be that way too. Two wound up being quite different, a little bit more readable, while having like a completely different like tone, or just having like some of the themes of the first one take a tone shift. Like it was trying to say some of the same things, and the intro that was written by Herbert's son, Brian, at the start of Messiah really kind of explained, how Messiah got misinterpreted a bit, but I liked it. So I like both of them. I've got a whole bunch of other books that I could potentially report on in some other fashion, some other way. Some of the things that I'm cutting from Dead episode might get revived in some way, because I want to like find a way to be more diligent with my reading and my watching, and figuring out ways to talk about those too, in addition to all the board games that I'm playing and all the people that I'm talking to. And you're too lazy to watch movies? New to me, 2023 movies is also a pretty light affair, and tricky, mostly due to a lot of absences. A couple of the best new to me 2023 films were actually 2023 films, and in general, I really like keeping up on movies that are highly recommended, that people are throwing around as potentially like award winners, or their best of list things that are trying something a little bit different too. So I'll just note some of those absences from things that I've seen from this year, and that would be Across the Spider-Verse, They Clone Tyrone, Rye Lane, Past Lives, and Killers of the Flower Moon. So I have quite a strong feeling that one of those could be my favorite new to me 2023, or favorite 2023 film in general. Just got to watch them. So the two big ones I saw were the two big blockbusters of the summer in Oppenheimer and the Barbie movie. And tentatively, I will have to say that Oppenheimer is my new to me / 2023 movie pick. From like looking into it after the fact, from doing more research or listening and all this stuff about the Manhattan Project and Oppenheimer himself, and World War II, and the plethora of things that I kind of like poured into after checking out that movie, and looking at some reviews and criticisms of it. Like I get a lot of what's being said. However, just from like the movie standpoint, I did like it a lot. It was just an impactful, powerful bit. I could definitely see myself watching the Barbie movie more frequently, and it had a lot of deep impacts and existential moments on me too, that I would definitely want to revisit, and sooner, as opposed to Oppenheimer as well. So kind of like a non-tie, but I also want to watch the other ones at some point, and maybe do like a look back for 2023. TV. All right, for television, obviously a lot of great choices. I've seen more series in 2023 and could talk about those more than I could the movies. So some of the ones that I watched and liked, one of them was late 2022, early 2023 in Wednesday. It was fun. I feel like the ending kind of fell apart, so no huge consideration as to whether or not it'd be my top new to me 2023 for television, and/or can definitely make a legitimate push for that spot. Also watched The Resort in 2023 as well. I try not to like place too high of expectations on anything, but I was quite excited to check this one out, and it definitely didn't fail on those expectations at all. Perhaps bit off a lot, and then kind of like mash some things together at the end as to like answering some of these questions, but I was still satisfied with the ending. So unlike the aforementioned like Wednesday issues, I didn't really have a ton of issues with the way it ended. I could see how others would, and I wouldn't say it was like my favorite ending either. Which brings me to like a weird spot in the fact that pretty easily favorite new to me 2023 is actually a 2023 release. Oh, another one that I did watch, and which was a 2023 release, was season 3 of Ted Lasso. Had liked the show, and it was a good season 3 too. But 2023 release, watched it, except the final episode, is The Last of Us. This one we actually started forever ago, late spring, early summerish. It's heavy. The episode, and if you've seen the show, you know which episode that I'm talking about, had me crying more than any show or movie had since Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. I was quite a mess, heaped over at the side of the couch, and that made us take a break. And then, a couple episodes later, once we finally get back into it, more ridiculously sad things happening and make you want to pause, make you want to keep watching, make you want to pause and recover emotionally. But had a connection with playing both video games, and I don't have a ton of critical skill in assessing television, but that would be my pick. Much like movies, there's plenty of things television-wise that were released this year that I would check out, but I didn't make a list of those like I did for the films. My favorite TV show of all time is Fargo, and for some reason, I never watched season 4. I could explain it. It's just a long combination of having cable and recording it and watching it in that way, and then moving away from that, and then never watching it even though I still had access to it. Kind of bizarre, but that's life. I'm like 6-7 episodes done in season 4. I think it's great. I like the way that each season is doing something all different, and I'm pretty sure season 5 is out right now, and I am quite excited to finish season 4, which I just restarted not that long ago, and then watch season 5 too. Music. I'm pretty unequipped to talk critically about most any form of art, and that's going to be especially true for music. According to the nice Spotify Wrap that we got not that long ago, my number 1 most listened to was Fleetwood Mac. Believe it or not, that is not a new to me 2023 artist, so not in the running here. But I do kind of fall into little bits where, just like the podcast, as I mentioned before, with some of my runs, I'll find like a playlist and do that on repeat to just help sync up like the rhythms and the strides, and having the same songs in the same spots just helps a lot. Like, this is the landmark that I'm at, and this is where I'm going to. So that's why Fleetwood Mac got a lot of time to shine. So I think, without like a ton of diving into it, the new to me artist is probably going to be JPEG Mafia, getting introduced to the collaborative album with Danny Brown. I like rappers that have different sounds, and both Danny Brown and JPEG Mafia are doing different things, and I've listened to Danny for a while, and listening to the collab, and then listening to more JPEG Mafia. I am always on the lookout for rappers that do things a little bit differently, sound a little bit differently. Even they don't have to be like off the mainstream or anything like that. There are plenty of popular ones that just have a sound or a voice or something that intrigues me a little bit more than others. So, music. Metroidvanias and Roguelite. My 2023 new to me video game is kind of tricky. Looking through my played list, I don't know if I have any 2023 games on it. Just double checking one right here in Midnight Suns. Nope, that was 2022. I did get, yeah, I'm behind everything for a year, so there's something off with my schedule. For some reason I was like, oh, I have Elden Ring, but I think that is 2022. So long story short, I like my video games, but I am quite behind on them. It's got to be Rogue Legacy 2, which I'll go back last year and say my new to me 2022 was Hollow Knight, and then 2021 would have been Hades. So I think you can kind of see the types of games that I'm gravitating towards. You could maybe even go back to 2020 or 19 and see Dead Cells on that list. So roguelites, Metroidvanias. Another one from this year that was, I think, a handful of years old now that I played was Yoku's Island Express, which is a pinball Metroidvania, and I played a couple others like that, but it's just a gameplay thing. And in a comment for the episode and with Liz Davidson, I mentioned something along the lines about how, like, I can kind of fall into something like Hades really quickly, just because it's like easy for me to do so from a gameplay standpoint. And I didn't really like elaborate on it because I don't think the game and the world and everything that it wants you to kind of work through from like a storytelling and thematic standpoint is necessarily easy, because I think the way that is all crafted is super unique and special. The way that the characters are like have their stories told through the recursive nature of a roguelite genre, like acknowledging the death and the discussions and the relationships and the mythology and the stories and the side quests that you're trying to complete in order to link up other characters. And man, and the soundtrack, and just the fact that the gameplay is the type where, like I said, I could probably turn that on right now, even though I haven't played in like a year, and just go for forever and get swept away and not do things that I should be doing. So that's kind of like Rogue Legacy 2. I don't think Rogue Legacy 2 has the world or storytelling that Hades would, or even Hollow Knight, even though Rogue Legacy 2 does have a lot of text and small things that help build towards what it is that it's trying to do. But to me, I think the novelty is just the system of the different characters and their traits and the funny combinations that ensue from that. And yeah, so that's my 2023. Speaking of the episode with Liz, Pentiment could probably be there, as I've just kind of started playing that more. I bought it immediately after the episode, less than a week after that happened. And then I just didn't play Steam Deck for like 2 months. And post Thanksgiving have kind of gotten back to that. So perhaps that could win the very esteemed award of my best new to me game. But as of now, it just can't, due to the fact that I didn't finish it or come particularly close. Maybe like a quarter of the way done. My biggest time sink. All right, my biggest time sink of the year. Maybe last year too. Honestly, don't want to go back that far into my memory to see how long I've been playing this, or screenshots on my phone of stupid situations that have happened from the game. Biggest time sink, Marvel Snap. I feel like this episode is probably going to be in the 40-ish minute range when it's all said and done, and I could talk about my love-hate relationship with Marvel Snap and all other types of digital CCGs such as Hearthstone and Runeterra, and then a lot more about Marvel Snap for 4 hours. More than that. I don't think anybody wants to hear that. I can almost, universally recommend the game if you have any interest in, lane battlers, if you have any interest in Marvel stuff, and you're not planning on taking it too seriously. I think the game, from interface, from development, rollout of certain features and everything like that, is kind of rough in many regards. If you just want to hop on and play, there's a lot that you can do for free. There's a lot that you probably would benefit spending money to get better, or more cards. Obviously, it's kind of like the point. But again, don't take it too seriously. Don't care if you play well for 4 of the 6 turns of a game and the other person didn't play until turn 4 and you still lose and wonder why that is part of the way that the game is designed. Well, it's so quick. It is relatively inoffensive in that way, and I think that's what kind of gets me keeping coming back, as opposed to some of the other ones that I mentioned, which are just longer, and it's easier to fit in some games of Snap. And that's one turns into a few, time sunk, and done. If you want to hear people talk about the game in a more intelligible manner, and actually in a discussion, it was funny because I started playing this game and heard the podcast from Dan Thoreau and John Perry pretty shortly after the game had come out, and kind of the rabbit hole they were in, things that they liked about it, comparing it with Air, Land, and Sea and other lane battlers. So I'll link that. You can listen to that. Or if you want to have Marvel Snap episode, put that in the feedback section coming up. Board game stats and awards. Now we are to the part that everybody was waiting for. And this is going to be the board game reflections. 2023, new to me. A lot more options to choose from. I'm actually going to be linking my plays. I went into Board Game Geek, copied and pasted all the games that I've played this year, put it in a Google Sheet. I'll make it shareable so you can all see that, see how many times I've played everything. And it's kind of nice too, because when I just copied and pasted into the Google Sheet, all of the games were just hyperlinked too. So if you want to take a look at Cacti If you want to take a look at 12 Chip Trick, whatever it is, you can just click on that game and then see its BGG page. So there's that. But from a high level overview, between January 1st, 2023 and early December, I've played a total of 107 different games for 257 total plays. 17 of the 107 games were from 2023, as far as I could tell, and I did click on every single link, and some of the ones are still then kind of nebulous, but I went with BGG for the most part. New to me in 2023, this is kind of a crazy number. So out of the 107, 60 of these games I had not played before this year. Wide range of number of plays for them. Obviously, a lot of these games here I can just highlight right now. 55 of the 107 games I played once. But that means that 52 I played more than once. So a lot of these new to me games I played one time, two times, all the way up to 12 as my most new to me game. And that one was Bargain Basement Bathysphere, and that is not winning very highly sought after new to me awards. So I've got three awards and a couple honorable mentions, and then a mentioning after that too. So best new to me 2023 game is Marvel Champions, the card game, or Marvel Champions LCG. Falling in the wake of Marvel Snap. I guess there's the Marvel boost here. But in all actuality, I think that Marvel Champions is a significantly more engaging and interesting game. I'd only given the LCG system a chance through Arkham Horror, and it was definitely earlier. I think it would benefit for me if somebody led me through it, and also if I moved beyond that core box as well, because I know that some of the campaign cycles really experiment with the way that the settings are laid out through the cards, and that sounds like fun. It was still a little too dense for me, and I feel like it still might be. But I think that getting into Marvel Champions wasn't that tough. Obviously, rules and things to figure out as you go. But I think the onboarding of the game, like the situation or the scenarios that it tells you to play with, worked out really well. Only have played it a couple times, so saying it's the best new to me game is kind of tough, but I have spent a good amount of time with it. Say if I picked Ra, which would be a completely worthy new to me game. I played it the one time, had a fantastic time, but maybe 30, 40 minutes. I'm just throwing out a time on there. Whereas the couple plays of Marvel Champions between reading it, playing out the scenarios, the one was multi-handed, so that took even longer than the pure solo play. I got to spend a chunk of time with it, more than if I had watched a movie by quite a bit, and I feel comfortable giving it this award, and it's my word, so I'm doing what I want. All right, best new to me, and I think 2023. So this gets a special shout out because BGG says 2021. I'm pretty sure I got my copy in 2023. I'm pretty sure that's when most people got the Kickstarter or GameFound or whatever, unless I'm sorely mistaken. And if that's the case, well, extra awards aren't going to make anybody unhappy. So the new to me and I think new to 2023. Special category award goes to For Northwood, a solo trick-taking game. I've documented how a final card draw at a particular ruler has really kind of hurt the outcome of some of my games. None of those situations or general poor play on my part, or not mitigating certain things as much as I probably should, keep this game from, well, A, having me want to play it, and B, just being quite like over the top joyed to pull it out and have like a fun solo experience in like a genre of games that I love, and fortunately been getting to play a decent amount more lately, but also is a little bit of a struggle to play with one person. There's a few more solo trick-taking games coming out. Two players, have a couple that I've been playing a little bit more as well there too. But I want to keep being engaged with my smaller card box types of games, and this one lets me kind of like keep my toes in that water, and I just love the game. So it gets an award. So this is definitely new 2023, and then obviously new to me because it came out this year, is 20 Strong. Only a few plays with 3. All of those plays were with the Solar Sentinels deck, so there's a chance that checking out the other decks could hurt it. I mean, that's a real possibility if something's happening with the too many bones or Hoplo set that isn't meshing with me. Maybe I'll be overall less satisfied with the package, but the overall system and the fact that I know that there's more coming out and you can take that core idea and use the different decks is, to me, something that I think is really only going to strengthen it in my mind. The art for sure on the Solar Sentinel deck looks like the best between the 3. It's not like it's bad in the other 2 by any stretch of imagination, but the Solar Sentinel deck is super striking. I like the puzzle of trying to figure it out, and the fact that you can only like make it like tougher and tougher, trying out different achievements, trying out different builds. I'm sure people will say that finding increasing like a certain like die is going to be more beneficial than others. Sure, that's the case. But you can also just try different things nonetheless. And it seems like the scalability for the difficulty is something that could keep you coming back for a long time, mixing in the other decks and so on. A couple games that have just gotten a few plays recently and are getting a little bit of an honorable mention for me are both Devon and Flip Town. I play a good bit of abstracts. I play a good bit of Flip / Roll and Rights 2 for the Flip and Roll and Roll and Rights. Usually I'll kind of like binge, so I'll play one of them 20 times. And I didn't really have one of those for this year. Flip Town came in late, presented a different setting, and similar comboing mechanisms that you'll see in other Flip and Rights. However, I see like a very strong bit of storytelling that has come from the different games that I've played. I've had 3 games and I've tried 3 different things. I've gone mine heavy. One of them I wasn't going to do like a ton of the looting and robbing and all that, but then I had like back-to-back trips to the general store where I just bought gun, pistol, then I bought the rifle or whatever the ones are. So I had these extra powers to head over and start robbing trains and people on horseback and all that, and got a ton of points in that way. I've liked that. I played a few plays really in quick succession. Speaking of plays in quick succession, Devon played it, got it in real life, immediately played it, and then went on to BGA to try to find people to play against. Have played against 3 people there, have gotten beat up pretty badly in all of them. One of them was actually kind of close. However, the more I get beat up, the more I want to go back on it and get beat up again. It's so interesting, the combination of like offense and defense that you're trying to get with that game. And I know that I'm just going for stupid gameplay strategies of trying to find out ways to like jump big stacks over the gaps in the board or the little valleys that are created between token sections and everything like that. But I'll sit on like my laptop and just have Board Game Arena open, searching for a Devon partner, and be like 15-20 minutes and nobody bites, and eventually I'll sign off. But I would like that number to grow. I'd like my physical plays to grow with it too. The pieces are fun. Okay. A final little call out. Unless I'm mistaken, my most played designer, or most different games from one particular designer, would have to be my number one podcast episode in John Cloudist, Small Box Games. I see a slew of them here, so I'm gonna drop my favorite new to me small box game as in the Shadow of Atlas, and that is actually a 2023 release as well. Don't have many more words to say about here than I did on the episode, so you can check that one out. But I also wanted to do a completely unsolicited little plug for his Omen Kickstarter that is coming out tomorrow. So if you're listening to this episode live, or you're listening to this episode shortly after it being released, John and I didn't really talk about Omen much, because since then, or more recently, like preceding this launch, has written about like everything he's been thinking about in that design process, put it onto BGG. I love designer diaries, and this was another like extremely personal and delightful read. So I can link that for you to check out. I'll link the project. With all of like my guests, I am beyond grateful that they've spent their time with me and they've shared their insights. I highly recommend that you take a look at any and all of their works, and I just have like a ton of gratitude in general, a ton of gratitude for John and how his smaller card box games kind of opened my eyes to different parts of the hobby. And I've gone on about these games for longer than I had expected to, as well. But I think one of the things that you can see in my logged plays is that a lot of the things that I am playing more are smaller games. So whether it's like a solo card game, like a little 2-player card game, small box game, and not just the company, but other companies' small box games as well, tend to have an easier time of learning, teaching, getting people to play them with you. And doesn't mean I'm going to stop playing large box games. For some reason, these large box games have hard way of making it into my log plays too. Like they just take longer, and I must forget to put them into my Board Game Geek stats because I know that I had a play of Massive Darkness 2 because it took me like months. It was just out on a table. Not the most complicated game. There was a couple things that I was like stuck up on from a rules standpoint for some reason, and it just never timed out where I like had to finish it, but I eventually did. I'm sure there are other ones that I'm missing, but in addition to having a more difficult time of getting to the table, I I struggle with logging them. So that's kind of unfortunate, but that's 100% a me thing. So long story short, I'm leaning smaller, but I play anything. I'll watch anything, listen to anything, read anything. Wrap up thoughts, requests, and giveaway information. All those extremely meaningful awards out of the way. Just a couple of wrap up thoughts. I've been wanting to have a website for quite a while now. I know I can make a pretty rough looking serviceable website to do what I want it to do. I could probably do it right now. Still gonna wait. I just want it to be like a good feel, even if it is as bare bones and simplistic as it can be. I still want that bare bones and simplicity to speak to me enough. I want it to be okay, and perhaps even be more than okay, but we'll see on that. From a social media standpoint, Intertextual Cardboard Experience has a Twitter. Late to the party, as everyone else, well, not everyone else, a lot of people are leaving that party, but just in my short time there, it seems as if like some meaningful board game commentary and thoughts and pictures and kind words and everything like that are being shared. So I haven't posted much, but I have liked other people's thoughts. Email is still, VOD, the pod at gmail.com. Please reach out in that way. Instagram with the same name, VOD the pod. Definitely a personal one. Also definitely one where I've posted more board game stuff than anything else, just because I don't do that much on social media. But speaking of things that I don't really do much social media on, I'm highly considering a TikTok. And before you throw a lot of negative words at board game TikTok, I have a plan that is going to kind of lean into the potential cheesiness of some of it, but then also put a twist and then also make it meta. I don't know. I've this grand vision for some videos, and I think they're really stupid, but I think that I really like them, and I think that there's going to be some things that I make to go along with these videos that I hope, or I can't imagine that anyone else is contemplating working on them in that way. Let's throw it out there. So if when that happens, I'll post that link too. But I really just want to direct people to the podcast. I want the time and the insight that was shared by my guests. As you can see, well, talking by myself, even in this shorter way, is still tricky. You still get hung up on all these different things, and having the guests with me has been like the most fun that I've had in board gaming so far, even more than some of the games. Like it's just, I guess, added a different layer to me. So I want to keep doing it. I want to keep working and trying different things, and again, ultimately, just like showing my gratitude and trying to like push the podcast in different ways. So that brings me to my very final bit, which is like my one of two requests. Request one is that if you listen to this podcast, uh, any of the episodes, you enjoyed them in any way whatsoever, that you could share them with another board gamer in your life. I would just very much appreciate that for all of the reasons that I just mentioned. And furthermore, for this giveaway, this is the giveaway of all giveaways. It could be one of many prizes. I know. The long and short of it is I have a lot of games on like a sell pile or willing to sell pile, new, opened, all lightly played. If they're open, that I'd be willing to pack up and throw into a box and ship continentally. So sorry, anybody not in the continental United States. And you have a couple options. You can go for the full surprise box where I throw some things in there and you get it, or I could just throw you a list of titles and tell you whether they're brand new or basically new, and you could be like, hey, that game interests me, and I would ship it to you. So the way you enter this contest is basically between today, 12/11, and there will be a quick reminder in the show notes for 12/18. As I said, there is an episode coming exactly 1 week after this bit that will give you like a couple more days. So we'll say 12/20. So you listen to it, you fill out that feedback form, and you have a chance of winning a game or some game in some way. Okay, this was much shorter than that last one that I mentioned before recording, but it's still a lot. So thank you a bunch if you stuck with me. Getting to like rework this was still a process. It was not nearly as much as an exhausting and existential spiraling mess that the first one was. I'm not looking at myself and seeing pure sadness in my eyes. But I'm glad I worked through this. Glad that it exists, and I hope that it provided some form of entertainment to you or some form of insight. So thank you a whole bunch. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Intertextual Cardboard Experience. Feel free to reach out via email, which is vodthepod@gmail.com, or check out my Instagram with the same name. There's not much on there right now, but I'm looking forward to working on the Instagram and other forms of social media and a website a little bit more in the future. Until then, keep playing, watching, reading, listening, experiencing. Thank you.